Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Whitehead. I'm sure I've probably been introduced now by Sarah and Christiana and Carrie and everyone else who's there at the event today. And I just wanted to again apologize for not being able to get there and thank Kathy Robertson and Matt and everyone else there today for inviting me to speak. I have some slides I prepared, and I'm going to walk through them in a bit to talk about case studies. And as I screen, I just wanted a very, very quick introduction as to who I am, the type of work I do every day, and why this issue has become as important to me as it has. I'm going to be talking about some lessons learned I had working on these types of projects around the country at large and small sites. I start out any EJ or climate talk I give around the country by first showing this slide. I don't like talking about myself, so you guys can read all the bio stuff. But I actually use this slide to make a point about stakeholder engagement. And it's at the heart of all environmental justice work, as I'm sure Sarah and Christiana and others have already mentioned today. But a lot of the people I talk to who run sites and do compliance stuff and are based in sciences aren't that comfortable traditionally with doing engagement work, and they're scared of the impassioned stakeholder, the person that's going to get in your face about a topic. And I find that if you do this work, it's helpful to start off with a commonality, start off with the fact that those people are as passionate as they are because they're thinking about the futures of their children. I'm thinking about the futures of mine every day and trying to do this work and find more sustainable, efficient solutions to lower emissions profiles. So keeping things like that in mind, I think can go a long way. But what exactly is an environmental justice area to start? You've probably heard the term 1,000 times, and it varies a little bit state to state, but I like to use this graphic because it really highlights the complexity as to what's going on and just the objective fact that 99 times out of 100, it's not any one site causing these types of issues. The area you have in front of you here is in northern New Jersey, just outside Newark Airport, the section of town that everyone thinks as they drive by, oh God, this is Jersey. This is terrible. Why would anyone live here? Of course, paraphrasing. Don't quote me on that. But there's a lot going on. There's six Title Fives within a mile and a half in this small area of the town. Some major highways, international airport, large port, and over 100 years of industrial history. That is just too much for any one area to handle. And as you step back a little bit and think about it, okay, if all this is going on and people are living here and experiencing higher emissions levels and associated health impacts, how do you start untangling all of that? And that's what various states across the country have tried. And I'll talk about that in a second. But states are only one of three major drivers that are pushing environmental justice forward. The federal government and various community organizations and supply chains are also extremely critical. And we'll walk through that as well. State-based compliance. I'm not sure if anyone in the crowd has heard of the Jersey model. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, but a couple of years ago, New Jersey came out with the first compliance-based environmental justice law tied to permitting. You want to get your permit in an environmental justice area, you have to, at a minimum, take stock as to what your environmental impacts are, and if they're actually disproportionate, is anything you can do to help bring them down. Of course, that's generalizing the whole thing, but you get the concept. And it's not just New Jersey doing this. There are at a minimum half a dozen other states with their own version of the program. Most notably for this right out here today, also Massachusetts, which I know has been spoken about a little bit earlier in the session, so I'm not going to go into that. And importantly, too, to note, there are 17 or so states that have done their own EJ screening tools, which is identifying areas within the state that basically warrant another look. And those are all based on social economic factors, with the basic thinking that these areas are more likely than not to have higher environmental impacts than others. And I like this graphic here on the side because it shows what a lot of people think environmental justice is, the passion of it, but then also the radicalization of it. And it's not that. Once you step back and identify these things and what's going on in all these areas objectively, there's something has to be done. And it's again not the fault of any one site, but through communicating better together, I think we can find answers for how to actually minimize impacts. And I think that's a good goal to have. And again, very quickly, for state models, New Jersey focused at first on 60 stressors and it actually whittled it down to about 26, actually exactly 26, which are actually listed in front of you here. Most of them are based on various respiratory and cardiovascular health metrics, but then also various fundamental things like green space and number of toxic sites in the area. I've done a couple of sites for New Jersey, and they started off with just straightforward, relatively straightforward public hearing things. I did a couple of these already for Covanta Waste to Energy, and before the full law was put into place, and it was really just focusing at that time on actually complying or trying to comply with the spirit of the law before the full law was actually written, which is kind of interesting, right? But it focused largely on stakeholder engagement and getting out there and telling the community what the project is going to actually entail. And we responded to all comments that came back. For both of the sites I did for Covanta, they had well over 100 comments. No one on site there is going to be able to respond to those or have the time to. So you have to kind of make plans for what that might look like and potentially bring in help if you need it. And taking a step further, because New Jersey also has a full law in place now, we did impact statements for power plants throughout the area and objectively quantify the screening metrics that you saw in the previous slide. This is carrying a lot of people throughout the state because they don't know what to expect. But once you fully know and understand this stuff, it's really not too far off from what anyone in compliance has been doing for a very, very long time. Just look at each metric, how the site is performing, and then if they are over various impact levels, what can you potentially do about that? Now, the federal government is also pushing this. When I say this, I mean environmental justice. There's more money out there now for grant programs in EJ areas than in my memory there ever has been. Large focuses of this are on decarbonization, spurring renewable energies, and just trying to clean up a lot of these areas. And there's almost every project you want to do out there, there's a possible grant opportunity for you. We're doing one currently actually for a scrap metal facility in southern New Jersey that's trying to take out all the trucking operations and material handling and convert it to conveyors and vessel loading. And in EJ area, taking trucks off the road, improving air quality, trying to check every possible box you can and be a good neighbor, frankly, and do this the right way. But the best part about it too, converting these processes over, they find is vastly more efficient. So basically, long story short, if you were considering a project and think there's a better ways to do anything you're doing right now on site, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, a lot of you guys are in environmental justice areas right now. So there's a great opportunity for you to potentially partner with local groups and establish a better process for your operations and get the federal government to help pay for it. I love this picture on the left here too, because it's a talk I gave at Rowan a little while back that focuses on the importance of workforce development and bringing up, basically bringing up young people into this type of work, but showing them how to try and take these large challenges on objectively. Lastly, there are community drivers for all of this. I had a client very recently who was challenged by one of their stakeholder groups. And there's a lot of historic things in place that scare people from taking these types of things on. Community groups think industries automatically bad and want to push them out. Of course, I'm oversimplifying there a bit, but in this case, our client saw a neighbor of theirs pressured by this group and pushed out of business, and it scared them. So we got a phone call to try to improve relationship with the stakeholder groups in the area. And it turns out that our client was doing quite a bit that they weren't advertising because they just weren't that type of person to try to help the community and to try to do the most environmentally impactful. As a concrete recycler, it's a little tough, but there are ways to do it. And the overall process has a vast impact on the area in a positive way. But all the all the community saw and was concerned about, frankly, was trucks going through their area and the concerns they had tied back to potential impacts and things like childhood asthma. But if you look at things objectively, our client was only a very, very small fraction of the air emissions profile in the area. And it took a little bit of doing, but by actually instilling an environmental justice policy for this company, improving their website, improving their outreach, going on a few tours with the community, answering the questions, we have seen improvement. Nothing's perfect by any stretch, and it's never going to be, frankly. There's always going to be pushback here or there. But if you're genuine about building relationships with your communities and trying and instilling these types of things on a longer term basis, there's going to be some tricky things. But if you stick to fundamentals on this and are interested and want to put policies in place, showing that you're genuine and there for longer than just an individual public comment period will go a long way. Because there's been a lot of distrust stoked in these communities over time. They think a lot of industry only cares about them when they have to, if they want to get their permit. There are ways to easily prove that wrong. I'm happy to answer any questions after this if I can get the call-in feature to work. But if not, you have my contact information here, and I would always be happy to answer any questions you guys have. I care about these issues, obviously, as you can tell, but I try to be as objective as I possibly can. It's not any one site causing the issues. There's many, many things in play here. But to be proactive on this and to put a little time in now before you technically have to, you're going to be doing yourself a lot of favors. And again, happy to chat about any of that. And thank you very much for your time. And with that, I will pass it off.